This episode is brought to you courtesy of NetSol Technologies, adaptive to your business, your growth, and the future.
Everybody, welcome back to Tech Check. And as you know, we continue bringing you unique, interesting, different stories on the Pakistan tech startup ecosystem. And again, to keep the variety going, we said we're going to go in a little different direction today. We're going to talk a little bit about marketing and marketing technology in Pakistan and how that plays into e-commerce. And with that, I'd like to invite Mr. Raza Matin, the CEO of Brandverse and Chikoo, to Tech Check. How are you today, Raza?
Doing very well. Thank you for having me here, Farooq.
Thanks for being on the show. And as you've seen before, we don't waste a lot of time. Let's dive in. Tell us more about Raza, Brandverse, and Chikoo.
Start with a little bit about myself. Last 5-6 years prior to Brandverse, I was with Google, representing Google in Pakistan, but I've dabbled in enterprise tech and the technology space for the better part of the last decade. Brandverse is something that I co-founded with two close friends of mine about 3 years ago. We are the exclusive content solution provider in Pakistan, which, long story short, we take photographs, we write, we capture metadata of physical products, and we distribute that content to a variety of content consumers. We work with brands, we work with platforms, and we work with SMEs. And that's because, and the reason why we sort of focus on content is because that's sort of the lifeblood that flows through e-commerce. Without it, you can't really sell, you can't really merchandise, you can't really market. And we felt there's an opportunity here to really solve for that at scale, which is what we're doing with Brandverse. Really quickly on Chikoo. Chikoo is a larger part of our mission, which is to enable e-commerce for all businesses in Pakistan. We do that at the enterprise level by working with a lot of large organizations like Majid Al Fatem Carrefour. We work with the Bikeas, the Airlifts of the world, the Cheetahs of the world in Pakistan. But we also want to be able to enable micro SMEs and medium-sized businesses across Pakistan. And we do that by creating a platform which is effectively the fastest way for any business or entrepreneur to come online and start transacting. And that's Chikoo. Chikoo is more or less the best way to really sum it is Shopify in a app which is designed specifically for the emerging market realities.
Very, very interesting. So, of late, Raza, I've been monitoring and scanning, what's been going on in Pakistan, and I'm seeing a lot of these disintermediation plays and retail distribution. I'm seeing a lot of e-commerce activity. What are your primary competitors in the market? What are you seeing from that perspective?
To be honest, on the content side, we don't really have a competitor. I mean, our traditional competitor would have been your independent freelance product photographer, or maybe some digital agencies at best. And in that sense, we sort of operating in a green field in Pakistan. We are scaling up nationally now, and that's sort of the plan for this year. But so far, no one's been crazy enough to try and venture into and do what we've been doing. So fortune favors the brave, and hopefully that carries on for another couple of years. Beyond that, I think on the Chikoo side, everyone's your competitor there, right? Everyone's trying to solve for bringing businesses online, whether it is Shopify or whether it is Dukaan in Pakistan or Dukaan in India or any number of sort of local businesses and digital agencies that design websites and provide e-commerce services. Our fundamental difference there is that we feel that many more businesses in Pakistan could come online, but only if you're able to remove a significant amount of friction that's currently preventing them from doing so. And we believe that friction is associated with the onboarding process, but also the perception of sunk cost or risk associated with trying to come online the first time. So is there a way we can make that onboard ramp smoother less steep, and in doing so, bring many more businesses online and hopefully accelerate the digital transformation of the country. That's what we're really trying to do.
Fantastic, fantastic. And so, in terms of where you guys are sitting, and I know you're in a startup phase, are you seeing revenue now in any of these projects?
Great thing about this is we very early on focused on what we felt could be a bread and butter industry for us or
Mhm.
vertical for us, which was the product content side. So we have over 200 plus B2B clients that we work with on a monthly basis.
Okay.
Uh, and that brings sort of the money in, which allows us to really now double down and invest in sort of Chikoo and sort of bringing that to a larger um, audience. We always felt that the rate of adoption and progress is slow in Pakistan. So that burn rate is working twice as hard against you in Pakistan. So what we really wanted to do was make sure that we had this little small engine constantly running, which meant that we always had some revenue to talk about from pretty much from day one. But more importantly, we were able to sustain ourselves as who knows what happens? No one foresaw the pandemic coming, and who knows what's going to happen in the next 6 months or 12 months. But having consistent revenues driven by enterprise clients, it's a good thing in a world full of uncertainty.
No, that's great. That's good to hear. So it's quite a bootstrapping effort, but something that allows you, gives you the freedom to not face financial peril at every corner. So that's a
Well,
great.
I think it also, I think, one of the things here in Pakistan is you've got a lot of people doing startups now. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's very fashionable, let's say. And I think very few people actually know how to run a business, scale a business in Pakistan, and it's significantly more difficult than anywhere else in the world.
Of course.
And I'm not just talking about the ease of doing business piece. I'm just talking about generally the operational challenges that come with starting something from scratch and growing it.
Sure.
So to be able to do that in Pakistan is a significant. It's a very strong signal to sort of investors and our sort of potential sort of sources of funding that we do know what we're doing and we've got a good head on our shoulders, and it's, we can sort of inch up the bigger bets.
No, that's great. That's good to hear. And yeah, you've called out something that's very realistic and something I'm getting a lot of inquiry around these days is, hey, we've got money, we've got an idea. How do we make this thing fly? So it's something that they're pretty good at doing here in the US. I think they've turned that into a bit of a science here. So good to hear that you're approaching it with
Yeah,
that in mind.
I think that on the look, I think Pakistan's at the cusp of, I think, a lot of money flowing in, and that's very exciting. I think um, my only asterisk or caution would be to really make sure that you have a strong understanding of the ground realities before you start really pouring a ton of money in,
Sure.
because there are intrinsic challenges in Pakistan. Therefore, I'm not saying the opportunity is any dimmer. I'm just saying that you just have to be a little bit more pragmatic and think maybe in terms of timelines a little bit more long term in terms of the payoffs, because you know there are demographic challenges in Pakistan. That's probably the best way to put it.
Wow. Well, sage advice that you're providing there, and that's good. It's good. We always what we're trying to do here, obviously, at Tech Check, is accentuate the opportunity and what it means for the country. By no means are we endorsing that this is a home run and it's going to happen tomorrow. So, thanks for
Yeah,
that.
and on that far, basically we have um, you can't get over the fact that we're the fifth most populous country in the world, right?
Okay.
So those 220 million people are going to become 250 million people soon enough.
Yeah.
Hopefully not too soon though, right? But we're going to continue to grow. We're going to be a very young population relative to the rest of the world. We're hungry. We have intrinsic desire to innovate and grow, and these are all great sort of indicators of a potential market primed to really sort of scale. Now, The challenge that we have is a lot of the solutions and innovations that are looking to be transplanted into Pakistan, whether it is you sort of reference the disintermediation of, for example, retail distribution or ride hailing or any of those things. The reality is the audience that is ready for those services is a much smaller subset of that population.
Agreed.
So, we're probably talking sub 30% of the population is actually ready for digital enablement or sort of the digital economy. And when you sort of overlay that with the fact that we're actually a very diverse and dispersed population across a very large geography, then you realize that connecting with those users, servicing those users, retaining those users becomes quite difficult. I mean, everyone talks about the complexity of language, for example, in India, but in Pakistan we have at least 6-7 languages. So it's not a homogenous market as a lot of people think. There are a lot of fissures and fractures.
Sure, no doubt. No, these are great. This is great, and I hope that the good thing is that now, as you're going through your own journey, you're probably cognizant of these things, and you're going to be setting some milestones that help others kind of pursue that from that perspective, right? Which is important to understand, right? Because what we don't want is a lot of people coming into the market and saying, see, it didn't work. Well, maybe you didn't do the right homework. And thanks for sharing. These are important things, especially for people who are thinking about going in and investing into this market. So,
yeah, I think the one, if there's one thing I would be desirous of in this sort of market right now, it's a greater sense or greater intent, ability, and desire to actually collaborate. Unfortunately, in Pakistan, there is my way or the highway, and everyone wants their own highway as well. And I think if you look at really a lot of the success that Silicon Valley has seen, for example, and now what Europe is seeing, a lot of those startups that are really blooming are blooming on the back of other startups who are consuming their services and also scaling. So it's sort of a mutually beneficial relationship that's sort of going on over and over. And I think we would love to see more of that in Pakistan. We need to see more startups working with more startups, and in doing so, sort of enabling greater synergies and obviously unlocking exponential value.
That's great. Well, I think the good thing is you answered my last question before I was able to ask it. So that worked out quite well. And as you know, Raza, we try to keep these things fairly short and concise. So today we're at the end of our time. Thank you very much for sharing your insights. I appreciate your candor and how you've expressed this. So thank you very much for being on the show.
My pleasure, and thank you again for having me. It's always good to be to put off some steam. So
that's fantastic. And with that, for our audience, as you can see, again, we're continuing to bring you different viewpoints, different types of businesses, different perspectives. We hope you continue to like, share, and subscribe us. Your inputs and your following us are the only thing that keeps this thing going. We're crossing 75 episodes. We want to keep going. This should tell you how much impact is coming out of Pakistan and how we can help. So with that, thank you very much all, and Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.